stuck here. The cops won't bother me. As you can see, it is complicated. This is one of the reasons I don't like any bike that's carbureted, because I just can't stand working on this stuff. You imagine, like, you have a bike and you put it away for the winter, and all of a sudden you come back and it just doesn't work. And a lot of times it's these carburetors. It's just, maybe it was a good idea back in the day, but not anymore. With fuel injection, it's a much better invention. Keep in mind where all of these hoses go. If you remove a hose, make sure that you know where it goes. And I'm kind of showing you so you know exactly. So on the throttle, on this right side of the throttle, you can see on this mechanism, there is a spring, and then there's a throttle cable hole here and a throttle cable hole here. And this is the throttle. When you like twist the throttle, it goes this way, and when you let go of it, it goes this way. So there's two cables working together. And up here, you also have another cable that attaches to this hole here that's a little bit hard to see, and that is the choke cable. And it pulls this thing this way, and that's how you operate the choke. Remember, there's a hole here, or a nipple, and this is where that T goes. It's a T, and it vents into the gas tank. Oftentimes, this kind of puzzled me why it happened. Look, remember, I am not a real mechanic. I'm more like Judge Judy of mechanics. I don't really know what to do. So I've had a Ninja 250 that I rode for 87,000 miles, and I did this a few times because the carburetors always seem to go out of adjustment once in a while. So just keep that in mind. There are these bolts up here that we're going to be removing. Be careful with these, because oftentimes if you don't use the right screwdriver to remove these bolts, you can strip them and it could be a bad time. You don't want that. So unscrew this, push it in, and it's got a washer, and it tends to like make a noise when you remove it. There we go. There we go. Make sure you push in pretty hard so you don't mistakenly strip this. And at one point I did strip my bolt for the carburetor, and I had like a spare one too, because I rode so much on my Ninja 250 that I had a spare carburetor. So now when you remove this, take it out carefully, put it aside, make sure that there's the spring, you put this aside. I like and when you remove it, this little plastic bit goes into the carburetor, and you see like it is very different looking. There is a direction to this plastic bit. So what I like to do is I like to keep it in the spring itself. And so on this part it goes like that, and then it goes into the carburetor like that. And I like to keep that aside. Now there's this diaphragm here, this rubber boot. One time I actually had a rip on it. So be very careful when you pull this out. There we go. So what we have here is the diaphragm, and I'm going to clean it up. There is some crud on the sides, and I don't like to have crud all over the thing. And now here is the needle. I don't know the terminology for this stuff, but I think that's the carb needle. I don't know. So it looks pretty clean. I like to keep everything back together, put it in the hole in there. And by the way, there is two holes to this. You want to put the needle, thread it through the big one. This is the choke cable holder. Let's keep it all together. And here's the other bolt. And now this part should come out of the carburetor. Just pull this aside here. There we go. And here is the top part. Wow, this is super dirty. I don't know if you guys can tell. I just pulled out the needle. That is exactly why this is the needle on the left side of the carburetor. It is all gunked up. That is absolutely incredible. And that's probably the reason why it wouldn't run and why it wasn't starting. I don't think I've ever seen anything so dirty, and it's like crusty. Look at that. And it's coming out, if you guys can tell. It's coming out. It's a hard varnish that's on this needle. But that's why we have this carb cleaner. If you spray the carb cleaner on this, you will be able to completely clean this out. It's like brake cleaner, parts cleaner, carb cleaner. There are people that specialize in carb work, so if you can't get your carb to fully work properly, you can take it into them and they will clean it for you for a fee. And it might be even better than doing this all by yourself, but I haven't cleaned carbs in a long time, and I swore off that I would stop buying bikes that had carburetors. But man, there's like so many good deals to be had on these bikes with carburetors because people just don't want them anymore. So, you know, the gas is pretty old on this, and that's one of the reasons that it varnished. And, you know, what happens is that when it doesn't work, people stop riding it, and then it just gets worse. But you have to clean up this entire carburetor. I like to make sure that even the outside is super clean because I don't want anything contaminating the bike. By the way, when you turn this upside down, you see all the gas just flowing. Look at this. Wow. I should have done this before. So, mistake I made, I should have drained the carburetor. I just don't have that much experience with this. I try not to do this. If I ride a lot, I don't get the experience of fixing carburetors. But when you turn this upside down, the gas is going to be pouring out of this hose. So make sure you have a container. I just poured it into my gas can outside. So you have 4 additional Phillips heads that we're going to remove, and then we're going to pull this part out. This screw here on the carb, while it's still on the bike, it's still accessible. So you can undo it and just remove this. It's always a good idea when you put your bike away that you run the carburetor empty. So maybe if you have a Ninja 250, you turn the petcock to off, run the bike until it just dies, and then put it away with a full tank of gas. That way the carburetor is not sitting with gas inside. I hear that's a much better way. These things are on so tight. Alright, let's see if I can... Oh man. Jesus Christ. This is just so tight on there. Insane. Alright, push down. Jesus. I hate doing carb work, guys. This is just torture. Oh my goodness. Alright guys, make sure that you don't put these bolts on so tight. These bolts have never left this bike, so that's the reason. That's the reason, like, they're so tight on there. And a lot of times when, I guess you want the carburetors to be tight, but Jesus, I remember that the first time I took it out on my Ninja 250, I did strip one of these bolts, and then I had a really difficult time. The little exhaust, the bolts actually face this way, so they face the throttle cable side. So remember, when you put these on, it will be this way towards the throttle cable side. So let's take this out. Man, that's dirty. This one's much cleaner. Jeez. Wow. So you can tell the difference between the right and the left. The right one is where I took out that needle that was all gunked up, and you can tell that the very bottom of that bowl is just gunked up with varnish. And look at this. There's varnish all over this little float bowl. And there's varnish here as well. The reason it probably wasn't starting was really because of this one. Because it started for a little bit, but we're going to clean both of these just to be sure. So the thing we're going to be doing now, you see these These are, I believe, what they call the pilot holes. And you can take a screwdriver, a flathead, and undo that, or use 8mm socket. We're going to undo this one. So here is, I want to keep it all together. So let's pull this out. And I want to keep it separated because I want to look at it. Mainly out of curiosity. Like, you know, I don't know much about carbs, but oh man, that's definitely much dirtier. This is the right one. And you can tell it is much dirtier. I mean, it is even like on the top, it's gunky. Just incredible how dirty this one is compared to the other. Up here, the right side one is just got chunks in the middle. The other hole, you're gonna have to use a flat screwdriver, a very thin one, and get it in here and twist it to remove the other hole. And then there's another one here on this side. This is the one that's really dirty. Make sure you don't strip it. It's very important not to. And this one, I believe these are made out of brass. So brass is soft. So once you get it loose, there we go. These are the screws that were inside. And we have to clean these really well. The little pilot, and these are the main jets. I believe that's what it's called. The main jet, the pilot. This is the one that was really dirty. And one of the things that you're going to be doing to clean this is, you see all of these little holes in here? This is and even this one, we have to make sure that we clean all of this. First I'm going to spray it with carb cleaner. And we're going to get all of this gunk out as much as we can. Then we're going to take a little bit of a wire and we're going to thread it inside here to make sure that we clean everything. So first thing we're going to be doing is cleaning these needles. Make sure you use gloves too. This stuff is disgusting. This is the one this one is pretty decently clean, but we are going to make sure we scrub it all out, including the outside. Yeah, I like to just, I don't know, spend quite a bit of time doing this. You're gonna try and get like a piece of wire. You can like even remove one of those electrical tapes, because you're gonna be poking it inside these holes just to make sure that everything gets, and you can see it actually goes through. You can see that if you poke it through, you can get like even a guitar string or something and just kind of like do this to clean it. There is a hole in the entire shape of this. So that's the thing that you want to try and clean, is just take this, and you can even like fit a bigger hole sometimes too. This one is not too bad, but we're going to clean the other one. There we go. We're cleaning it by hand. On this, there's like these little tiny holes that you see all over. There's also a hole that goes from here all the way to here, and that's what you're going to do. This is the one that was relatively clean, but we're going to clean it all the same for every single one. So we're going to take that wire that we just had and we're going to thread it, and hopefully you guys can see this. And this one is a little bit rougher to get through the so do this, make sure it goes through. String the sides as well, just to make sure that nothing is bundled up. And it's a little hard because it's just tiny little screws here, but you should be able to clear out any gunk. So we're going to take our string here and we're going to thread it through. And I can tell right away that this one, there's a little bit more resistance. This was the one that was much grosser inside. So kind of twist it around, bring it out, and then take your wire and just kind of poke it on the sides here. There's like, what, 4 of these? And then take your carb cleaner. And spray it in there really well. This stuff really smells, guys, so make sure you wear a mask and use gloves. It's actually even discolored from the damage. I mean, that is gunky. There is gunk even here on the sides. Up. When you look at this, there is some gunkiness like over here that I can use a flat screwdriver to just clean the outside. I can't imagine what the inside is. Alright, so we're going to take now our string. It is very, man, this is very thick on here. And we're going to run this across. And I'm seeing like debris coming out of the other side of the wire. Look at that. The wire is so dirty. Incredible. And we're just going to keep doing this as much as possible. We want to make sure there's no gunk at all here. If we leave the gunk in here, it's just going to build up again. Look how dirty this is. Wow. This is the reason it wasn't running. So if your bike has this issue of not starting, or if it runs and then it dies, or it runs with just the carb on, this could be the reason. It's just one of these jets that's fouled up. And you have to clean it. This is the issue with like carbs. Just like, who wants to do this? What I would do is I just might get a bigger wire, or maybe even bundle up 2 wires. That way you can fit it in here. And I'm just going to reach this big chunk of cable in here. I'm not going to go through with such a big thing, but it'll be good to get any of the gunk from the inside of this, because look at this. I'm bringing it out and it's really filthy. There's like so much gunk in here. So I'm glad that, look at that. That is just so dirty. If you look at the cable, to try and scrub as much as possible of this jet, the cable comes out with like crud. I mean, like, I don't know if you guys are able to tell, but there's actually like things dropping out. Look at just how dirty that is. Just incredible. This is just so filthy. No wonder this wasn't running. It's this thing. One particular carburetor was just so filthy. So we're going to just keep cleaning this, because this is gotten so dirty. I don't know if you guys can tell, but the color of this, it is not the exact color that came out. And I got a new can of brake cleaner. That old brake cleaner was from my old Ninja 250. So it was not doing too well anymore. So when you take one of these and you put the extension like this, you should be able to kind of do this and get it through the entire jet. And you can see it should come out, even like the dirty stuff should come out. And it's kind of dirty as well, so. And now we'll do the exact same thing for this one. Just to make sure that everything is nice and clean on this thing. It should be fairly clean, but so what I do is I'll take a very thick wire and I just run through this like that. And the wire is good. So the very dirty one, the dirty jet that we removed, we're going to scrub it out, make sure that no dirty particulates come out, because this one was very varnished up. And I can see it's pretty clean. I can actually see the other side now. You know, doing these jets is very important. And remember, if you ride a lot and you ride every day or you commute, you don't have to do this. I think in the 87,000 miles I've done on my Ninja 250, I think I did this twice, as I recall. But it's one of these things that if you ride a lot, you're not going to be doing it as much. So there's also a screw here on the side. I think it's like a vent of some kind. I don't really know. So I'm just gonna stick my thing in there, make sure that it comes out. And I'm gonna do that in the other one too. On this side, this is the one that was very dirty. And this one's definitely still a little dirty. Look at that. Just take this and just kind of scrub it all out. Another jet. Sorry, I don't know the exact terminology for this, but I think one is a main jet, one is a pilot jet. There's all sorts of gunk over here, so I'm just gonna scrub it all out. Here's stuff. Look at that. Jeez, that is filthy. Wow, it is so dirty, guys. This is, look at that. This is all gunk that was in the thing. Look at that. I do not like this stuff. This brake cleaner stuff is just disgusting. This is the one that was dirty, and you can tell all the varnish that's on this little float bowl. I'm just going to pull it out as it's this little thing here. So you poke this and the little rod starts to go to the other side. Then you just reach and grab it, push the little rod, put it aside, and then this should come out on this section here. So if you look at it, this little contraption just goes this way, and you don't want to bend this tab. So it kind of measures the fuel in the bowl. I have no idea, but we're just going to clean this out. Now I got the carburetor pretty much all cleaned up. It's kind of a complex job if you rush through it, but here it is on the table, and I am ready to start putting it back together. Remember, putting it back together is the same way as you remove it, except it's a lot harder, I think. And here are the bits, all clean and ready to go. I don't want any particles on the carb itself, even on the outside. This one, you can tell it's the one that was bad. I'll spray my towel here. And you can tell that this was the one that was bad because the outside here is all gunked up, full of crud. And on the outside, it doesn't affect anything, except I'm always a little bit worried that it will somehow, it's going to get in there. I have to be meticulous about this, but just put it aside, and then you can clean the rest of the carb. And I like to spray carb cleaner, brake cleaner inside here, and just take your time, clean all the surfaces out. Just make sure that you don't want to do this again. I'm actually going to even clean the outside of the carb. The compressor, just kind of blow it through. So there are these little plastic bits, and then there's a tab here that's metal, and you put that little thing on there, and then just drop it in, and then take your rod and lift up on this. You don't want to bend that steel tab, by the way. That's how you measure the float or something, and I don't want to have to go through that. So there is a play. And just thread it on the other side. There are people that are much better than me for doing this, and you should always look online for people who are very experienced. But before we do that, we have to put our needles on here, and then this one is a little bit harder. You drop it into this little hole. I'm going to start by tightening this, and there we go. Don't force this needle or this pilot or whatever it's called. Don't force it. You just want to tighten it a little bit, but don't strip it. Don't do anything that's silly. And then this is a 8mm, and you just tighten this one. just a little, not too much, because you could strip this. It's very soft metal. So now we take our bowls, I guess that they're called, and the other one. And by the way, before we put this on, I think I'm just going to go ahead and loosen this. This is what you use for draining of the float bowl, in case you want to service the carbs and remove old gas from staying here. The reason I want to do this is just to run a little bit of brake part cleaner from here, and this little hole. Removing the carbs is such a pain in the ass. This is the case why a lot of people, including me, only buy bikes for themselves that have fuel injection. Fuel injection is just such a better way of going about it, but a lot of old-timers still prefer the carburetor method because of the way you can adjust it. So you can put different needles and stuff on it and have more power or whatever. I don't really care for that. The shiny screws are the ones that go on here. This screwdriver I'm using right now is actually a little bit too small for this type of work. But what I like doing is just using this really quick to kind of put it on. And then I'll tighten all of these bolts up. Right. Just spray it really quick. Just to kind of get any gunk out of there. Turn it upside down. And now we're going to be putting the top part out. So we are ready to put everything back together. So the first thing you're going to be doing is putting in the rubber. And I already have the rubber on one side of the carburetor. This one's a little bit harder because of the hoses. There's only one way of fitting it. So if you reverse it this way, it's not going to fit. So it's only one way to fit this. The key is that you want to make sure that the diaphragm is on that specific groove. And then you have to make sure that this piece of plastic here, when you look at it, there's only one way of putting it. It's like these little legs down into that hole. But the needle goes perfectly into one side of that plastic. Don't put the needle this way. It's just this way. And what you can do is just drop the needle into that hole. And that's where the needle goes. And then the next thing, drop the plastic, and then the spring goes like that. So we're going to do the exact same thing for this one. We're going to drop the needle into that hole, and there's two holes. There's a main one, that's where you want to drop it, the big one, and then drop with the legs down into the hole and make sure it goes in there. There we go, it's nice in there. The spring, we're going to put the spring on one. And then we're going to take, now it's important to note that there is a rise here on this cap that goes onto the spring. And then we're going to put some screws here just to hold it while we do everything else. But I think for me what I do is I just put it in that space here. Make sure that the spring goes out here, not on the outside, because then you're not going to have a good movement. And I kind of look down, and at the same time I try to just do this really slow because I don't want to destroy and hurt the diaphragm. And here we go. Pull out this metal bit, put it on top. All right, so look around. Make sure it seats properly. And the thing we're going to be doing now, there's this piece that we took out. This belongs in the choke cable. It holds the choke cable in place. That, I believe, goes on this side. You see, this is the choke, where the choke cable goes. So this goes on here. That's the first one we're going to put. All we have to do is tighten all of these bolts, go clockwise, because what happens is that as you tighten the last one, the first one is going to be a little bit looser. So just kind of go over it. You can go diagonally as well. The carburetor is now, I guess, clean. So this is what a little tiny carburetor of a Ninja 250 looks like. It's pretty cute, and hopefully now we're going to see if our work paid off, because we're going to put it into the bike. Let's get started. That's how you clean a carburetor off a Ninja 250R. But if you have any other bike, this is a very similar system to any other bike. The hard part really is removing the carburetor off the bike. Once you have it off, it's not as hard as most people think. So let's go ahead, let's put this back in the bike and see if it'll start. Kind of stuck here. The cops won't bother me.